This is a curious reading from St. Matthew. It seems that there is already a well-organized church community. Jesus says, go to the church and let the church community approach the sinner. But this is long before Pentecost, which we call the birthday of the church. I think we have to remember that when Matthew wrote his memoirs of the life of Jesus, he did so 40 or 50 years after the ascension of Jesus, after Jesus visibly left us as a community. And he was taking the teachings of Jesus and applying them to the situation of his own community. Obviously, there were some problems in the community. Evil was raising its ugly head. Sin was being committed by members of the church community. And so he takes Jesus' teachings and makes them very specific to the situation in which his people find themselves. But nevertheless, the basic way Jesus approached sin and evil is what Matthew is portraying for us in the gospel today. And it comes down to three things. The first thing is that we do all in our power to save the person who is involved in evil behavior. Our focus must be on the person, not on the offense committed, not on the sin, not on the crime, not on the evil that has made itself manifest among us. And thirdly, if we are unsuccessful, we are to go and treat the person as a sinner or a tax collector. That's a very interesting final solution to the problem of evil. Treat them like sinners or tax collectors, who of course were very notorious for skimming off extra money from the people they collected taxes from and kept it for themselves. So they were the personification of evil behavior. But just exactly how did Jesus treat sinners and tax collectors? Remember Zacchaeus, the infamous tax collector? Got up in a tree just to have a look at Jesus, and when Jesus saw him, he said, "Come down, I'm going to have lunch with you today." The approach of Jesus to sin was not condemnatory. He welcomed sinners. He ate with them in order to draw them into the sphere of his love and the love of his Father. In our time, evil still makes itself manifest in our own behavior. We still commit sin. Members of our community, our family, are involved in sinful behavior at times. But we are becoming more and more aware in our time of what is known as systemic evil. Evil that has built itself into the very way we live our lives. Systems of evil which are embedded in our culture and in our society. And we are bound to confront those evils as well as evil in individuals, ourselves and others. Some of these evils are our awareness, or being raised to our awareness right now. One of them is climate change. No matter what we say, the science seems to be telling us that our climate is changing to the detriment of our people, and that we are partially, at least, responsible for that. It's caused by the misuse of the planet, by greed in various forms. How do we respond to that? That's the evil of one of the evils of our day that we have perhaps not confronted before. There is racism among us, which has certainly become more and more manifest in recent months. And this is also caused by greed and human sin, selfishness. And now we're experiencing a systematic pandemic of the whole world. And I'm not sure how much we're responsible for that, but there are indications that even our misuse of the animal kingdom may have brought that disease to us from the animal world. But however that may be, the pandemic has made us conscious of one thing that perhaps we have overlooked before, that we are all interconnected, that none of us lives a solo life unto ourselves, that everything we do and say and our own behavior has an effect on others. In the readings today, Ezekiel and Paul and Jesus are presented to us as people who speak to us of the unselfish, forgiving love of the Father. They are prophets. Prophets are ones who speak for another. And if we remember, on the day of our baptism, just after the water was poured over us, we were anointed on our head with sacred chrism. And we were told, "You are now a prophet of the Lord." So we who have to speak to evil in the world, we who have to present the loving mercy of God to the world, how do we deal with systemic evils that we find in our society? How do we present to the world the mercy and the love of God to lead people out of sinful behavior and the evil consequences thereof? How do we announce the call of God for us to live in love unselfishly? The last words of Jesus to us on the day of his ascension were, "Go to the whole world and tell them the good news of God's mercy and his command for us to live unselfishly in love." That is the vocation of every disciple. That is our call. But Jesus sends us out not to be salespeople of God's love. Jesus sends us out to be free samples of God's love.